My name is Allison Druin, and I'm the director of the Human-Computer Interaction Lab at the University of Maryland. And I'm also an associate professor in the College of Information Studies. The mission of the college is actually to transform that connection that people have with information. The mission of the lab is to make that transformation better with technology. Now, the mission of what my own research is, where I lead teams of faculty, staff, and students, is actually to transform that connection with information for people that are short, children. You've heard of them, right? Well, the purpose of this talk is to convince you that Google needs to transform its mission. It needs to transform from Google to Giigle. And hopefully by the end of my talk, it will not be an if, but it will be a when. Okay? So now, let me begin with a question. How do you think kids could help Google? Well, I never start with questions with a room full of adults. Sorry. I only work with children and adults together. And so, in fact, I have a team of children in our lab 2 days a week in the afternoons during the school year and 2 weeks during the summer. And these children, they're 7 to 11 years old. They're with us a minimum of a year, a maximum of 5 years. And they are our design partners in all that we do. So, in fact, when I said I was going to go to Google and I was going to talk to you about children, I asked this question to the team. How do you think kids could help Google? And in fact, those are pictures of some of the team there, right there. And so what one child said, oh, not a shock, okay, we could help Google because we're, today and future users. And of course, that goes with all the stats about who users are. And granted, you've got more than enough users, so you really don't necessarily need them right now. But anyway, the stats are all saying that 6 to 11-year-olds are actually among the largest user groups on the internet. So, all right, so you're not necessarily going to be convinced by that. So, and so we said, all right, well, what else can we tell them, huh? And, well, Google, hey, we can bring parents to Google. And that actually goes with the literature having to do with in fact, European and American households, if you look into their houses with computers, children are more likely to have computers in the household with, versus households that don't have computers without, and they don't have children. All right, so, but you guys, you don't really need users, do you? So who cares about that? So, all right, well, we got the next comment, and that was an interesting one, and if I can get there, we'll be all set. Kids could make Google giggle. All right, so what did this kid mean? She meant that, that kids help us think differently. It's not about efficiency. It's not about how fast, how small, how much money. It's about laughter, it's about creativity, it's about cool, it's about what's next. And kids help us think about things very differently than adults do. And an example of giggling, if you will, is the International Children's Digital Library. That was started out as a research project funded by the National Science Foundation, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. It is now also a nonprofit foundation. And essentially, it is not your grandmother's digital library, let me just tell you that. It's a digital library where you don't see necessarily the shelves of books, all right? It is a digital library where if I want to find all the books that have red covers, that are picture books, that can make me happy. Okay? There you go. I dare you to do that in Google, my friends, okay? And actually, I generally get cheers from audiences, but this is a different kind of audience. Anyway, all right. Because people have a hard time with visualizing Boolean, okay? And guess what? Kids know how to visualize Boolean. They helped us do it. This is a digital library. It is the most frequently used digital library in the world for children. It represents books in 39 languages, I think, with an interface in 13 languages. It has books that will make you laugh and make you cry. They have been donated. From around the world, either by publishers, authors, national libraries, and so on. Now, say I actually want to actually read something in here. Okay, so I go and click on this particular lovely book, all right? And not a shock, these books have been reviewed by other kids. Go even figure about that, okay? And so Juan Raul in Honduras has tells me about the book. The book's about a girl who wanted to have a room of her own, and how does it make him feel? Happy. He gives it 5 stars, and even draws you a part in the book that's his most important part in the book. So you should make sure that you go and take a look at that. Okay. And if you want to find out about how cool he is and what other reviews he's done, so there you have Jose Raul. He's drawn himself. He's reviewed these other books and so on. Okay. All right. So you're getting the idea that this digital library has ideas in it and has been designed with kids and for kids. Okay. But let me go back to the presentation and before I show you how to read a book here for a reason. All right. So, okay. So that's another reason. Okay. That's another reason how kids can help Google. You want to be creative? All right, I got ways for you to be creative. But another child, come back here, home, sorry. Another child, I'm not losing, I'm going for the gusto. Another child said, now if you're not nauseous by this time, here we go, there. All right. If Google really wants to change the world, because she heard all the press you guys put out about Google wanting to change the world, well, then changing a child's world helps, okay? As you've all heard, if you want to change the future, change one child. Well, there it is, guys. You can do it. You can do it with kids. And it came home for me when we worked with, now you can see this, when we worked with children in 4 countries. We've been working with children in New Zealand, Honduras, Germany, and the inner city, Chicago. And when we first started designing the digital library, we went to them and we went to these kids. At the time, they were 7 years old. We worked with them for 4 years. We asked them if they could wave a magic wand over the library. How would you change it? Well, this child in inner city Chicago asked me, what's a magic wand? Turns out that his mother never read to him. He had learned to read by reading People magazines in the beauty shop that she worked in. He'd never gone to a public library, never gone to a museum. Well, I said, okay, let's try that again. If you could change the library, how would you do it? Well, he said, oh, that's easy. I put grass on the floor of the library because I have never felt comfortable or safe sitting in the grass and reading a book, and I have always wanted to. All right, well, granted, we could not put the grass on the floor of every library in the world, okay? But from that experience, we also heard from children around the globe about not search. Sorry, guys, I know I'm standing in Google and I'm saying not search, okay? Yeah, they talked about use. They talked about when I have that relationship with the stuff after I find it. So I cannot sit on the floor of my concrete library in Germany. I can't. We have stairs in our library, and So the girls in my class in the wheelchair can't get up the stairs. These are the things children talked about. And so what this did was, granted, as I said, we could not change bricks and mortar, but we could change how children read books on the screen. And so now, if I go back to the digital library, I say to you, this is not Adobe, okay? This is not your Adobe Reader. Basically, children that we worked with not only said, we need to see the book in a different way than we've seen it before. And I don't know how many of you ever watched a kid read a book, but especially the younger ones, they usually want to start, oh, I want to start in the part where it's the family that's all, you know, hanging out and doing really cool things. So, you know, so I want to start in the middle. Or the kids actually, you know, or I can't tell you how many times kids just flip through a book because they're trying to select it. And so we have multiple book readers because kids have different reasons for looking through a book. There is no digital library in the world today that has multiple book readers. They haven't watched people really reading, okay? So this happens to be, now some kids love it, some kids hate it. This is like reading a book on a merry-go-round, all right? I warn you. So for those of faint of heart, we'll go slowly. But anyway, what you're doing here is you're flipping through. Many kids will not read a book. Okay, and then I want to zoom in on that book and so on, so I can actually really look at the pictures and so on, and really look at the text. I can do that too. But many kids actually have different purposes for reading and the way they go about reading these books. So we have multiple book viewers, and we found that it's pretty evenly split as to what they use and when they use it, and that's why we continue to have it. In fact, we actually had originally looked at these multi-book viewers and sort of said, well, which one's going to win, because that's the one we'll put up there. And ultimately, none won and none lost. And then we realized they used them for different things, and that's where we went with it. Okay, back to this. So I think you're getting the idea that children are not short adults, all right? They see the world very differently, all right, in terms of in terms of their challenges and their opportunities. They don't see abstractions the way we do and understand hierarchies, and they don't have the ability to keyboard the way we all think everyone was born from the womb to do so, okay? And the diverse motor skills, you cannot even imagine how painful it is to watch a 5-year-old that knows exactly what they want on the screen, and they're searching and they're browsing, and they can't hit the target because the silly buttons are too small. So we've done a lot of research in how big the buttons should be and so on. But there's also varying abilities in terms of search and browse. And I'm sure you've all figured out that kids don't necessarily search in certain ages. They really are doing an extended browse because actually left to their own devices, children will most frequently browse than anything. And certainly their selection criteria is so different than ours, all right? How many kids do you know of at 6 go and say, hey, this is the author and the title and the ISBN number and all that? No, it doesn't exist. You know, I want to find the purple book and it's happy and I know there's a character. One of the things we actually, from our research we've seen, is that the interface must age itself. That these children search very differently by age. And so yes, 35 to 45-year-olds, they don't care the difference between the interfaces. But there is such a difference in 10 years of children that that you can't actually have the ability for kids to search the same ways, and they don't want to. So younger boys and girls will primarily look for things with in a physical, looking for the physical properties of the book, whereas boys, older boys in general, will look by genre and by the way the characters are. All right, more on that later. All right, Now, how do we know what we know? It's not because we, stuck our microphone in a kid's mouth and said, hey, talk to me, kid. It's not that way. We partner with children. And we've been partnering with them for many years, almost a decade. What we have done is adapted the co-design and participatory design methods of our Scandinavian colleagues and here in the United States to work with children. We call it cooperative inquiry. Got lots of papers on that. We'll talk about that later. And we've worked with many companies as well as organizations, and other universities have picked this up as well, is the notion of how do you work with kids in a way that's appropriate, that gives them a voice in the design process. I'm going to touch on a few of those things. Sorry that my colleague Shelley isn't here to see my design processes, because she would see some similarities and some definite differences. We work with kids not after the adult had the great idea and say, so, what do you think? Huh? Good color? Isn't that a nice thing to do? Okay, no. We work with kids from the moment we start a project. From the moment we start ideation. And we do this in a number of different ways. So if we just focus on that, yes, we use sticky notes with kids. Yeah, we do that. With kids and adults. Because it's about the elaboration process of understanding, because kids understand certain things, but adults do too, so we don't want to leave the adults out. It's about that partnership together. And so what we do is many times a company will come in and say, we need a feedback loop on this, and so we'll ask our kids and adults in the lab. We generally have 6 to 7 kids in the lab, and generally 4 to 5 adults as well, whether they be graduate students or staff or faculty. And we say, okay, likes. What do you like about this stuff? What do you dislike? One idea per sticky note, and also if you have any design ideas. We never ever have what we call a sticky note session where nothing clumps. Somehow, it's amazing, adults, kids together, we start to see trends, always. And actually, this does work with adults too, so those people that really don't want to care about kids, we've just done this at the U.S. Holocaust Museum and have been working with them on a full lab experience. So I'll tell you about that another time. Anyway, then we might go into what we call low-tech prototyping. Bags of stuff, art supplies, sketching ideas. Kids, adults, we all know how to do this. And what we do is we don't just sit back and say, hey, kid, do all the work, okay? And I'll figure out what you've got there. What we do is we build these things together. We sketch ideas together. We do it with crazy things like cotton balls and pipe cleaners and so on. Why? It frees our brain waves. And again, we've done this with adults only, and we've done this with kids and adults. But it's something where everybody can have a voice in the process. Then we get to the big ideas. And so what happens is we'll present these ideas, okay? In fact, they're talking to a screen right now, our virtual companions, where we video conference all the time, one of the companies we work with. And so we're presenting our ideas. And as we present our ideas, one of us starts writing down what we call the big ideas. What are the ideas that are coming out of each of the prototypes? And then what we'll do as a group is start to circle some of the things that is the same between, we'll generally have 2 to 3 groups working at any given time on a project. We'll look at those trends, and then we may redo the cycle another time. So what you're doing is you're looking at an upside down cone of information, all right? You're going from the most general, anything in the world is great, and then you're going to more specifics. And then, yes, we actually do build things like these guys here in wonderful places. Anyway, we also do observation. However, it depends on the project whether or not we do observation. One of the projects we worked on was actually creating a collaborative storytelling tool for children. In fact, I'm using it right now, and I'm sure you figured out I'm not using PowerPoint at this point, right? Anyway, it is called KidPad. Essentially, we worked on it. It was supported by the European Union and with colleagues in Sweden and England. And essentially, we started off by trying to understand what were the problems with kids' storytelling on the computer. And so we went and we did, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Karen Holtzblatt's contextual inquiry. We do a bastardized version of hers. I, in fact, gave a talk with, we gave back-to-back talks recently at NIH in Washington, D.C., and the two of us looked at each other and said, ooh, this is going to be interesting, because we don't do the same kinds of things. But anyway, so essentially we collect the raw data, whether it's videotaped or not, or whether we're sitting right there, someone's looking at the quotes, somebody's looking at the activities. So in this particular case, Fatima is saying, no, you're only erasing all the time, Lena, stop. And then Lena says to the adult, can you help me? I'm trying to draw a circle. And Fatima says, wait, I know how. And and then Lena says, hello, I want to move it here. And Fatima says, get the red in tray. So they're killing each other. They're really killing each other, okay? And so the activities that are going on here is that, you know, they're essentially the adults there, but Lena is trying to take the mouse from Fatima. It's not pretty, so on. All right, then we go to do data analysis, and this is what's different about our contextual inquiry. We're looking for less granular kinds of things than Karen would look at. But we're looking at the activity patterns. And the activity patterns looked at struggle for ownership, shock, and control of the input device, and seeking help. We looked at roles to see what was going on here. And yes, leader, leader, learner, leader. So, and then what we do is we have a column of design ideas, and we start to note the kinds of things that we think might support this. And multiple input devices, collaborative software came out very strongly, and making ownership options. Unfortunately, our colleagues at Microsoft have since locked us out of the innards of the operating system, so we cannot do the kinds of things we did back in '99 and 2000, but so be it. It was an interesting exercise. Anyway, but meanwhile, you say to yourself, well, what are the kids doing in the lab? The kids are observing other kids. Yes, we have the inmates observing each other. So what we do is the kids are actually drawing. In fact, they are creating cartoon kinds of things. And what you get from the kids is spot on, a spotlight on the most important things, all right? You must do it like this. I don't want to, you know? And so that's, you know, so what we do is we get multiple points of view of the same experience. All right. So challenge, yes. Is this easy to always work with children? Well, yeah, it's a challenge. Why? Well, because kids don't really want to believe you that you're really going to do that. This is not an exercise. There's no right answers. We don't teach that to our kids anymore, do we? Do we tell them that there's a right answer and you must be drilled on this? The other thing is for the adult side of the world, is to try and truly convince them they need to partner. There are some adults that talk over the kids, and you want to sit there and say, hey, let them be a part of it. It's the elaboration process. Actually, though, we've had many colleagues come and try and learn the process and sit back and observe. And they don't understand that it is a partnership experience between the kids. The goal, it's elaboration. I have a good idea, then you're going to elaborate on it and say, but hey, wait, we could also do this. And then she's going to say, but if we do that, then we can do this. The goal is to not know whose idea ultimately was. All right? So a few examples besides the one I'm using right here to demonstrate. I really bored the heck out of her, didn't I? Anyway. Okay. It's good they were a packed house, at least for you guys. Anyway.
3 hours later.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, here's a couple more examples of the kinds of things we've done. We have been partnering with the National Park Service, and in thinking about not just what happens when people go home from a park experience, but what happens, how can technology enhance that park experience as we go along in the park. And so we start out, as we always do, sitting around with our partners talking about it. And one kid says, I think better when I see trees and sky. The big ideas just want to come out. So in other words, guess what? Kids don't think just when they're in the classroom or when they have to do the homework. It actually has to do with when we're outside. Another one said, I want to help the adults know what I want to know. We could show them the cool places, and then they could tell us what we didn't know. Think about that. Another one said, what if we could send secret messages to other people on the path? Okay, so these were some of the beginning ideas we came up with. Outside of showing you the whole design process, this was partially supported by Microsoft. We used tablet PCs, and the idea was that we had a network an outside network, wireless network with tablet PCs that we developed. This is Gene Chipman's dissertation work that he's been leading. In fact, he'll defend it on Monday. He's ready to kill me because I'm here right now. Anyway, and basically, Gene developed a RFID reader into the tablet. You have multiple kids or families with tablets, and they are wandering a path. And it's not just about who else put tags on things. It's these kids have the tags, they put them on things, and they start to draw about something. But you're saying to yourself, so big deal, I've seen tagging before. It's the notion of collaboration, it's the notion of creation right there in context. That these kids don't have to go back to a classroom or a house to actually think about what they've just done. They're doing it in context. So Jonah might draw the leaf, but then he's gone, and someone comes along, swipes his tag, and sees that the park ranger actually asks, why is this leaf still green? And so somebody actually answers it, and it's saying it's still growing. Another one comes along and notices and said, but it's always green, you know. So they're having this, you know, kind of collaborative talk going on. We actually piloted this to the greater public in Rock Creek National Park, and so there you see Diane. That's actually, she's talking about that leaf, and what she did was that once the kids were done with what they were looking at on the trail, then she went and gave a specialized tour of the trail based on what the kids said and elaborated on that. But just like everyone else in the world, we have gone to mobiles and handhelds. I'm shocked, right? It is the computing platform of the 21st century, and it is the notion of keeping up with kids. So we've been. This is the dissertation work of Jerry Fales, and we were at Fort McHenry National Park doing what we call mobile collaboration. Now, mobile collaboration is the notion that, guess what? Collaboration doesn't just happen asynchronously, distributedly. It can happen when I have a mobile, you have a mobile, and that we may want to share information, not sending it back and forth. We want to do content splitting, or we want to do content sharing. And so in the national park, we can create stories together, mobile stories together, by in context. So we're not going back from a field trip and having to deal with that. This work has definitely motivated us when it comes to the digital library, and so we are trying to understand, and we've been and we have actually put in some proposals to actually work with children in developing countries, because guess what? Those are the things they have. They don't have these. They don't have tablet PCs. They have mobiles. And what happens if they want to actually read a book on a mobile? What does that look like? How do you share a story together? And in fact, there are many, many ways we can do it that we've been exploring. All right. Now, needless to say, we've learned a great deal from our design experiences in terms of what to create, but we've also learned a great deal from our research of the impact of these new technologies on children and their use. These are just some examples of the kinds of things we've been learning, and obviously everything's in press, so you know that's to be expected. But anyway, in terms of mobile devices, something that Gene found many results from his work, but what was quite telling was that he did a comparison of a paper version of these tablet PCs with comparing the paper to the actual technology, and he found that the paper was more personal, but the technology was collaborative. What do you mean by that? It's, as soon as they got paper, they wrote their name on it, okay? They didn't write their names on things when it was on the computer, and guess what? There was very little of kids writing on each other's papers. Haven't we beaten that out of them? Now you say to yourself, oh yeah, well, 7 or 8 year olds not going to do that. He did this with kids that were 4 and 5 years old. Amazing. Now the technology side of things, oh, they were writing all over each other's stuff constantly. But nobody put their, no, one kid may have put their name on a drawing, but almost nobody actually drew on, wrote their name and saw it as a personal thing. In terms of digital libraries, we've just finished our 4-country study in working with these kids in Honduras, New Zealand, Germany, and the United States. And we've seen that over time that, yes, the digital library is very motivating for reading, especially for kids that are reluctant readers. We've seen there is a strong cultural awareness that books from different countries can bring. It doesn't matter if they can't read the text. They start to think about the stories of other people. They start to try and understand what these people are saying. And certainly we saw a wider variety of books read. And in terms of search, you'll recognize the the person's name here, Hillary Hutchinson, who was our star graduate student that you stole from us. Anyway, yes. No, maybe I spelled it wrong. I don't know. But anyway, Hillary got her PhD with us, and in fact, that interface of simple search is actually the work of Hillary and our team. And one of the things she saw was that flat interfaces are much better for children's search. And she can probably give you tons of detail more about this than I can. But anyway, and in closing, lessons learned. There is no such thing as a K-12 interface. Sorry, it doesn't exist. Anyone that does research and tells you it's this is great for K-12. No. In fact, we are disabling our children by creating one interface for them to use. And in fact, Google, you're doing a great job of disabling the world's children because they can't, yes, that's absolutely true. You've got a lot of kids whose parents say, let's Google it, and they can't type, or they can't spell it, or they don't even understand what do you mean? They can't read it, but they know they can search it. All right, and so the interface that you create for a 3 to 5 year old has got to be different from an interface for a 6 to 8 year old. In fact, we have at least 4 ways to search in the digital library. I did not show you all those ways, but we have a globe that spins. The youngest children just spin the globe. They click on a place, and then they found books. Okay, that's and then it's somewhere around 3rd grade. It starts to congeal on simple search. The interesting thing is that somehow the adults don't necessarily go to the adult interface. They seem to stay in simple search. Anyway, we definitely see that taking learning experiences wherever the children go is absolutely important. It's not, again, it's not about going back to the home to create something. We are mobile, we are active, and that is the computing platform. And so if we expect people to plug their things into computers, that's not happening. That's not going to happen. One of the things we've seen again and again, even when we weren't looking for it, is that children want to come together. They want to collaborate. They are not just wanting to. They're social beings, and certainly we've all heard about distributed collaboration, but that shoulder-to-shoulder collaboration. Children clump in front of technology. It is a known experience, and so we need to bring kids together. And the idea of kids understanding each other's cultures, understanding where they're coming from, absolutely critical. Because maybe then a kid from one country is going to understand that I have some of the same feelings and I have some of the same fears that another kid from another country has, and that's critical. The way we should be doing this is not dragging children into the world of computers, okay? It's not okay to make automated toilets for children, all right? What do I mean by that? I mean that anyone that's been a mother or a father that has seen a poor potty training child sit on a toilet and be absolutely fearful that they were being sucked in because of sensors that we have created that are appropriate sensors for adults. That's what we're doing. We are making automated toilets with our computing technologies for adults. Okay? Could I say it any stronger? All right, and lastly, so how do we do it? We need to drag computers into a child's world. And when we do this, guess what? It may be good for the adult kids, all of us. It's like sidewalk cutouts. We did it for wheelchairs, but able-bodied people do drag their groceries over sidewalk cutouts. You know what I mean by sidewalk cutouts, yeah? And bikers use it. We did it for the disabled, but it's good for all of us. And so what I would contend and what I would ask all of you that's left in the room to consider is that Google really can become Giigle and absolutely go beyond much more where it is today, not only for children, but for the whole world. So with that, I'll take questions. Thank you.
I have to say, you said something that intrigued me, which was that the mobiles are the platform, the reading platform of the future.
Yes.
What you said. And I like the idea that kids might be reading on these things. And I was curious about linking it to both of your guys' talks. Do you see that happening? That people are reading on mobile devices in the third world? And that this is just the way we're all going to be going in the future?
Well, I couldn't say about all, but with us, there is no other option. So.
That's right.
And certainly in a very developed context of Korea, people are reading novels as they commute on their mobiles.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the world's, it's wonderful to be in a world where there's such a strangeness. People are. It's too easy to say, the mobile is just for snippets of information. Of course it is.
That's right.
But you see, and these are the technologies kids like to have in their hands, on
That's
iPods
right.
or something.
But the interface, I have to tell you, bye. Okay. Anyway, the interfaces are wrong still. And in fact, we're focusing on those interfaces now.
You said you had some ideas. You haven't started, but some.
Yes, we do. We do.
So reading on the mobile.
Yeah. All right. So give me two phones. Okay. All right. Okay. Yo-ho. All right.
I want to change jobs. That's a strong phone. That's a power phone.
All right. Man, it's red too. Watch out, that woman. Okay. So, I have a book. All right. I have a book, and I found it on the International Children's Digital Library. Shock. Okay. And Robin says, I want to read that book too with you. Now, it's not just sending the book page. How can we see the screen? If we put it together, imagine we have double screen. All right? Now, okay? Now, give me your mobile. Come on. You come over here with it. No, you come over here.
You take these things to sell them.
Okay. All right. And now we start moving. Now, you say to yourself, okay, big deal. We're doubling pixels, okay? So what else can we do? Content splitting. What do I mean?
Text here, picture there.
Text there, picture here. We can hear it all together.
But it's collaborative reading.
It's collaborative reading.
And that's because kids do that?
In fact, there's a lot of, if you will watch kids, okay, I'll give you back your phone, but yours is much nicer than mine, so I don't know. Anyway, and I'm clearly living in the wrong place. Anyway, but no, it's absolutely basic. There are many, in fact, we developed the initial work and filed a patent and so on. But that's why I can say hi. Anyway, but the idea is that the notion of our collaboration in context, we've got to be much more creative, because the screens are only going to get so big. the content is going to get more and more. So what can you do with zooming? What can you do with content splitting? What can you do with various different things? And so we and so we've been working on that. And this is the dissertation of Jerry Fales that we've been, essentially our team's been working on. Yeah.
Are you in any way looking at games in Japan?
Games in Japan.
They happen on small screens, they happen with sharing, they happen on the train.
Yep. Yeah. But a lot of it, it's very interesting. A lot of it is very distributed. A lot of it is point to point, okay? I'm sending something to you, you're sending something to me. There is not that notion of how do we have it together, though we do understand that kids will all be on the same thing at the same time, okay? And we'll be literally looking at each other's screens kind of thing. But it is, I would say that there's a lot to be learned from the gaming world, a lot to be learned. It's just a question of, what can we take, and what, I guess the other thing too is that there's a fair amount of Twitch, okay? And so the notion of how good is Twitch for certain constituents, certain types of users, it's not that simple.
What do you mean?
The Twitch, okay, I'm sorry. The pressing the buttons. So certain buttons are certain can do certain things on the games. Okay, and so there are certain users that are much better at this than other users. Faster.
That depends on the game. That's not the typical Japanese game.
No, I understand. It totally depends on game, and it also depends on. And now finally there are more games that are bringing more genders. There's only 2, but anyway, bringing.
Everything's automatically detect age. Would you be able to make an adaptive UI that would change your age so you go to the same place, and you set up any kind of metrics that someone here could use to let that interface grow in that person?
With the proper funding, yes, absolutely. We have a conceptual framework for thinking about it, but needless to say, it's something that's much larger than what we've been able to do. Yeah. Any other?
All right. Well, it is exactly 4 o'clock.
Oh, you're a master of time.
Mm-hmm.
I try.
Dr. Druin.
That's right. But thank you to all of our speakers. I really appreciate it.